Okay. Since we've done number 4 in a way, I'm gonna go on. Okay, what were your favorite in-show moments? So, like, what was your favorite episode to direct or to watch? And, or what was your favorite moment or line from that episode?
Well, I really liked what we were starting to set up with Cyborg Dan, and I feel like he would have become a much more comedic, sidekick to the Duke. The Duke was great. I mean, Dee Snider brought a great energy to that character. Now, here's something. This will get. Here's something for the fan base. So the Duke was originally a very, very different character when we conceived him. Essentially, his inception was we were trying to think of, okay, what if Mike took a different path in Motor City and grew up to be kind of like an insidious character? You know, if he was a little bit more sleazy, like if he was Mike on the surface, like an older Mike, but kind of like, he was always going to be duplicitous, like kind of half good and half bad. Like he would be an enemy of the Burners, but an enemy of Kane at the same time. Sometimes he'd team up with the Burners, sometimes he'd team up with Kane. That part remained, but initially we were thinking of being much more like, oh, that guy could be Mike's dad or his older brother or his uncle, and he'd be like a lot like Mike. And our inspiration was Nathan Fillion, who we worked with on Venture Brothers. He had done a voice, and I hung out with him, and I was like, wow, he would be a great older Mike. Like he's the same type of personality, he'd be great. And then as we started to write him, he became different, and Nathan Fillion was going to be hard to schedule due to his castle stuff. And we started thinking about who could be an interesting character in this new take on the Duke. And actually was flipping channels and saw Dee Snider on Celebrity Apprentice. He was like, went to do like a guest spot. It wasn't even the season he was on. He was like stopping by and doing something. I was like, oh, Dee Snider, I hadn't thought about him for a while. He's fucking crazy and he's got a unique voice. Why don't we see if he's available? So we capped him, and the Duke was only going to be in like 2 episodes initially, and Dee did such a great job in his performance. He became such a fun character that he essentially became a main character. So he was my favorite character and a great guy to dig into, and also the one that we give the animators the most creative freedom with. I was like, you could really treat the Duke like a cartoon character. You could do really silly stuff. Like later on when they started having him like in the some of the season finale stuff where they just had him like slide around on the ground like a snake and stuff. It's like really kind of pushing the boundaries of not that Motor City is realistic. It's more based in a real world than a super cartoon. So the Duke.
So the Duke. And
yes.
the episode, well, I guess Threat Level Texas, you said before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's my favorite now. That's my favorite because of what we could do with it now. I don't think that episode could exist without the episodes that were made previous in the season, because it's kind of like, I mean, that's an episode that's really an episode for the fans or for people who are paying attention during the series, because I think if you tuned in and watched that episode without having seen an episode of Motor City, you wouldn't understand what was happening at all. I like that it came purely from character, which to me is a great way to tell a story. Motor City had a lot of construct, had a lot of rules and a lot of things we had to set up, and actually we were planning to do that in the second season, but I'll get to that later if what was great about this Threat Level Texas, it was just like crazy character stuff, and it didn't have to make sense. It didn't have to fit in the world. He could do whatever he wanted. He could turn into a giant zombie and fight Kane, grow, like a wave motion gun in his chest, and it could get crazy.
Great.
Yeah.
And your favorite line from the show?
Let me think. I don't know if I've got a good answer for that. My favorite line, it might be, because a lot of the lines are based in their context.
Yeah.
Line itself is not necessarily, might not be clever on its own,
Yeah.
Elements like when Cyborg Dan's face gets melted and he's like, my face, how's my face? Stuff.
Yeah.
Still, like initially we you thought Cyborg Dan actually would have like more of like a human face because he was a cyborg and it would get melted. But then, one of the board guys drew him like, that Atmo robot, and I was like, oh, that's even funnier because he didn't have a face, and he's concerned about how his face looks, which is even sillier to me. So I guess that's my favorite line. I don't know.
Great.
So the fandom is a pretty intense and tightly knit group, and so what was your reaction when the fandom kind of started emerging? Were you expecting it, or?
Well, I wasn't expecting it to the degree that, really the speed at which it came together was kind of overwhelming, because I've worked on a bunch of shows where there's been fandom and either it's happened really gradually over time, or it's kind of like reached a peak and then died off really fast. Like Megas kind of grew a little bit, but never, I don't think even still has gotten as big as Motor City has. And like Metalocalypse got real big for a while, but not as much anymore. Or some of the fan bases were just younger, or didn't. There wasn't a forum for the fans like there is now. Like, I got my career started on Beavis and Butthead, which had a huge fandom, but it was not like kind of directed and centrally located like the Motor City one, and the internet had not matured at that point. It was pretty young, so there wasn't a place for people to kind of like globally gather and talk about it. It was more like weird fan art that people would send in with like actual physical art, stuff like that. So it surprised me. I thought it was great. I think it's awesome.
Cool. What was the most surprising thing to come out of the fandom? Like, what was like a piece of art or something that showed up that you weren't expecting
like
at all? Or?
Like a fan idea or a theory or just something that took you by surprise?
The biggest thing that took me by surprise, and probably because I grew up in car culture, is that people responded to the characters more than the cars. Like, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's got to be like 99% about the characters. Like, there's like, I don't know, you guys can probably keep track of this better than I can, but it's like, I would have expected more like car stuff, but I'm super stoked and happy that the characters resonated enough that people were interested in them, because that actually is more telling to the success of the storytelling. The cars are going to look cool because we had great designers on the show designing the cars, but the fact that the characters were interesting and people wanted to draw them was really great and is all that you could hope for. So that was the biggest surprise. It's like, wow, people are into the characters? That's awesome.
By the way, how big is the fan art folder thing?
Oh, we had to give it up. We couldn't keep up.
Oh no!
So what was the final height? What was the final height?
I don't know. I mean, we gave up months and months ago. Like we couldn't deal. Like it's cool. It's great. It's just we didn't have the time to track it. It was like I gave up like 14 binders or something, and that was months and months ago. So I'm sure it's exponentially increased since then.
Wow.
Wow. You'd probably have to you'd probably run out of paper.
Yeah,
trying
exactly.
to print it all.
Yeah, that color printer, that stuff gets expensive.
Yeah.
So, what would you say in the fandom? What would you say your favorite creative piece or joke or whatever that you've seen?
Man, that's tough. There's so much.
There is.
Man.
Okay, I think I'll narrow it down. What do you think about the fun bucks?
That's funny. Yeah, it's a cool thing. Like a lot of these things are, and I gotta say, I don't even have the bandwidth to keep up with all this. Like some of this stuff takes on a life of its own and runs, and I only get to see snippets of it. Like I don't know that I'm familiar with all of the fan art that's out there at this point. Like in the beginning, I was able to keep better tabs on it, and now, actually, I gotta say that the love pillow cases that we got, that's the craziest thing. Have you seen those?
Yeah, we've seen them.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much about that. There's like, first the fact that even the concept exists, and that there's the like kind of like dreamy, airbrushy, kind of like like pseudo-realistic anime versions on one side, and then the like so totally spot-on model versions on the other side. We're all looking at it, it's like, wow, they're really, really on model. On the one side, it's like as good as any, like as good as you would expect any like officially licensed product to be. Like somebody really paid attention to the design on those.
Yep. Well, that's what you get when you have a cult following. Yeah. Okay. What do you think about the fans trying to continue the legacy of Motor City? There's like this big, huge comic project going on called Motor Comic, which basically wants to write more episodes in the form of comics.
I think that's awesome. I mean, why not? Like you guys, I mean, officially, I gotta say, I can't comment too heavy on that because of
course.
you know, my Disney non-disclosure stuff. I think it's great because as the fans, you guys can do that. I can't officially endorse or like participate in anything like that, but I love that it's happening. So if that, you know, is a satisfying enough answer.
Yeah. Okay, and now I think we have one last official question, and that is Dead Wardian, you know the guy? He's asking, are you bad as Can?
Yeah, I'm as bad as Beetle. Tell him I'm as bad as Beetle. He's as bad as Ken. He knows, tell Dead Wardian, he knows he's the best.
Yeah, he's a friend of ours. He's pretty cool.
Yeah, he knows I'm a Howard Stern fan, and that's a Howard Stern show reference.
I see.
He just submitted it. It goes deep. What I can say regarding the continuation of the IP is that, through my company Titmouse, we are trying to see what aspects, and none of this hasn't happened yet, but we're making a movement towards seeing what aspects of the IP can be licensed from Disney to then pursue in other mediums. Mm-hmm. It's probably not going to be a TV show, but it may be other aspects of, other mediums that exist in the world. That's about as specific as I can get.
I know that there was a petition a while back that got well over 13,000 signatures to return the IP to Titmouse. Do you know if anything ever came of that, or?
Well, I think that's awesome, and I think as a result of that petition, it was like very flattering, and I received, I think, an enormous amount of Twitter followers based upon that petition, and I think it's great. I think as far as the petition goes with Disney's, the people who control the IP, I don't know that it's going to literally make a difference to them. I think it sends a message in a way that there's a lot of fans. Essentially, I have a contract with Disney that outlines, real specific ways that I can get the property back. If we were in agreement, Disney would have to be a party that they'd have to want to release the property, but it essentially involves more money than I could raise to do it. Essentially you have to pay for essentially a large part of the first season that's been produced, because they put a lot of money in it. They allowed it to happen. I bear no ill will towards Disney. I think they're great. I'm continuing to work with them. We're doing a show with them now called Randy Cunningham, 9th Grade Ninja, which you guys should check out if you get a chance. And they're a great company, and I plan and hope to work with them in the future. I think there are ways to get aspects of the IP back, as we talked about. The petition, I think, is more a nice gesture, and in a weird way helps me more with other. You know where it helps? It's not going to help Disney give the show back to me or Titmouse, but it's going to help me if I were to secure the license of the show. It would help me. The more signatures there are on that petition, the more I can point to that to possible new clients or distribution entities and say, look, there's a lot of people interested in seeing this continue. So it's probably more helpful to a new entity than it is to Disney, if that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does.
It could be a good thing for the new, anyone I show it to in the future.
Yep. All right. God. Okay. Do we have any loose ends? Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not prepared for any questions. I mean, how many of these podcasts have you done?
Oh God,
I think 11 or 12, something like that.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of them. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm super psyched that you're doing them.
Yeah.
Well, we're super psyched to do them. We've had so much fun with this.
Yeah, even though it's been kind of spotty over the months.
It just started as a whim, like way at the beginning, when we were both just first getting into it, like way back in April, I think we first had the idea, and then we did the first one in May, and we were not expecting the reaction we got, and it's just been a crazy ride.
Yeah, well, great. That's cool. Well, I think, you might be talking to some other people. You're going to talk to Mac, or did you talk to him already?
We're gonna talk to him eventually, and hopefully, like, a bunch of the other guys as well if they want in. So there's, like, an open invitation for Titmouse.
Yeah, that's great. As Titmouse.
Spread the word.
Yeah, and we're pursuing a bunch of other properties. There's, our ongoing shows. There'll be more Metalocalypse, there'll be more Super Jail, there'll be more China, Illinois, there'll be more Randy, and then there'll be a bunch of new stuff that will be coming out in the following year that has not been announced yet, but there's more cartoons to be watched, so you'll be able to see them at some point.
In the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All
right. Okay, there is one more question that is kind of like into Motor City stuff, but I'm sticking it right at the end here in case we have to cut it out. What's outside of Detroit? Do you have any, like, solid ideas for that?
We really were digging into that. Initially, our initial concept for season 1 was we were going to do a 2-part episode that was kind of like a kind of really setting up how the world works. It was the kind of conceit of the network at the time that they didn't want a premise pilot, that they wanted a show that you could kind of be dropped in the middle of a story. So we kind of did a little bit had to service the world a little bit, but we're in that one specific story where the plan had already been set in motion. The plan for season 2 was we had outlined a kind of overview, a 2-part season opener that kind of went back and delved a lot into the history of Deluxe, Motor City, and the surrounding area. Now, due to the fact that I may expand upon this IP at a certain point, I don't want to give it away just yet. If it looks like all hope is lost and nothing will never make anything else, I'll spill the beans.
Sweet. Exciting.
Cool.
Excuse me.
That's fine.
I've always just kind of wondered, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this because, again, possible future expanding on the IP, but we didn't ever really get a lot of information on the backstory of Texas or Chuck.
Yeah.
And we got information on all the other characters, but we never really found out what was the deal with either Texas or Chuck. So
yeah. Well, I can give you a little bit, Texas grew up in Motor City, and we were planning on writing an episode that kind of delved into his parents, and that they were kind of like intellectuals, and they kind of had this kind of meathead son. They were still proud of him because he was still, fighting for freedom, and he would have been a good character episode, I think, where you think that they're so very different in the beginning of the story, but then by the end you realize that they're all kind of like have the same ideals and the same values, even though they go about them very differently. And then for Chuck, basically, we were going to set up that he grew up in Deluxe. And he was a guy who, intellectually, he was a guy who was kind of, in theory, he liked the idea, kind of like a lot of, computer hackers, in air quotes, that are out there, kind of like the idea of being an outlaw, but was deathly terrified of it, and kind of would joke around with, that he was working for the man, and he would be able to hack into Deluxe's computers, and he had the idea, he had plans for cars from, these old, he delved through old records, and theoretically had knowledge about cars but had never seen one or never driven one, and had these ideas that man, if I could ever see a car, if I could ever drive a car. But then when he was actually confronted with it, it terrified him to death. So that's his backstory was kind of, he was a childhood friend of Mike, basically, from Deluxe, who Mike dragged down to Motor City when he made his escape down there.
Wow.
That's great.
That's really great. Everybody's going to be really excited about that one.
There's going to be a big explosion for that.
Cool.
Yep. Cool.
Wow. This was great.
This was great. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us. And
good luck with the future.
Good luck to you too. Live fast, live free, eh?
Yeah.
All right.
We'll be looking forward to seeing and hearing lots of other things from Titmouse and from you, and maybe even from Motor City, who knows?
Yeah, who can know these things?
Alright, so this is Zeke signing out.
And Nacho also signing out.
And Chris P saying bye-bye.
And live fast, live free. Tune in next time. Bye.
Woohoo!
Woo.